Good morning, everyone. I didn't get an introduction, so I'm not sure if I should be up here or not. I'll introduce myself. I'm Joe Trichler. I'm a professional genealogist, and this is my second year presenting here. And I'm here to talk about AI and how we can use it as family historians and genealogists. How many in here have used AI? Okay. How many got it to do what they want? Well, hopefully when you leave here today, we'll be able to fix that problem for some of you, because we want to talk about how to write and properly talk to AI. When you're working with I, remember, it's a conversation. These are developed so that we can talk to them. You have to type it, of course, but that will probably change with time too. But we have to communicate with it, just like you have to talk to one another. Only they have to be very specific about the instructions and what we say to it. And that's what I want to help you understand today, is how to talk to it, how to create effective prompts, we call them, when you're trying to get AI to help you with your genealogy. So what can AI, let's review just a little bit. What can AI do for us? What does it do well? Remember that AI is not like a search engine. AI is a reasoning engine. It doesn't think. It doesn't think. What it does is draws upon all of the things it has learned. AI is being taught on an ongoing basis. It is being fed new information all the time, but not on an everyday basis. They update its knowledge base about every 6 months or so, depending upon which company you're going to use. And we'll talk about the AI bots here in a minute. So it doesn't always have the most current information in it. You have to keep that in mind, that maybe you heard something more recent that it's not talking about. It's because it hasn't learned it yet. It has to learn just like we do. So it's a reasoning engine. It is not a search engine. Now, many of the search engines are linked to AI, but the search engine is different. The search engine is looking for specific things that you're asking for. AI is going to actually do things for you, as we'll see here in some examples today. What I want you to always remember, though, is that AI, you must always verify what AI tells you. Must always verify. And I'm going to show you some examples today of when AI went off the rails. And it does that. We call that hallucinations. AI doesn't like a blank page. And so if you ask something to do something and it doesn't know what you're talking about, it's still going to spit something out. It doesn't like a blank page. So keep that in mind as you are working with AI, that you must always check so that you can detect when it's hallucinating, when it's making things up. Now, some of the things that AI can do very, very well for us as family historians. It can summarize documents. You can give it a document that you found, a will, a land document, any document that you locate that's 20 pages long. It can do a whole probate file if you want to, or a military record, and it can summarize that for you and give you the pertinent information so that you don't have to transcribe those 20 pages yourself. It can do transcriptions. It can extract data. You can give it a census page and tell it to extract what you're looking for. Tell it to extract a certain household. You could just upload the image just like you would when you download it from Family Search or wherever you're getting your images from. You can analyze photos, and I'm going to show you an example of that today. I'm going to show you an example of many of these things today to show you how they work and how to use them. It can transcribe and translate. It's getting better at translation. It's not good at translating every language. It's best with some of the more common ones. It can do French and German and Spanish and Italian and Latin. Not that we speak that one, but a lot of old documents were written in Latin. So it can do those languages pretty well. But if you give it something off the wall, it's not going to necessarily be able to translate it. It'll give you an answer. It'll translate that document. But unless you can speak the language, you won't know. You won't be able to check the accuracy of it. So keep that in mind if you use it to translate. It can create narratives. You can give it a timeline for your ancestor and ask it to give you a 1-paragraph or a 2-paragraph narrative about that person. We see many of our websites doing that. Family Search does that with their little narratives that you get. It takes the data right off your Family Search profile page and creates a narrative for you of that individual's life. It can teach you something, and I do use it for this one once in a while. So if there's something you need to understand about what you're doing in genealogy or something you don't know how to do, it can oftentimes teach you how to do it. You can ask it, how do I do this? Not just in that short little phrase, but when you write the prompt as to what you want to learn and how you want to learn it, it'll respond. Brainstorming it's still learning when it comes to brainstorming, and I do use it for this, but it's not necessarily as good as just sitting down and working on something myself. But it can brainstorm, and there are some things I do use it for brainstorming. For example, I do a lot of teaching, genealogy teaching. And so I'll sit down with it and I'll say, brainstorm for me or tell me ideas for a workshop that centers around census records. And it'll shoot out some ideas of what we could do for a workshop in census records. So it can be very useful for some things. If you're going to use it to brainstorm how to break down your brick wall, remember that it does not do research. In fact, that's one of the things it cannot do. It can help you with your research. It cannot do it for you. And I'm going to show you an example where I tried to ask it to do that and see what happens. It doesn't do deep record analysis. For example, if you have a document with lots of detail in it, a couple nights ago we were working with documents on probate and court records and things, and in the document we were looking for the parents of one woman named Sarah Huff. And in the document it listed all the children and heirs of the man who had deceased. Sarah Huff wasn't listed in there. Now, it can't tell you that means he wasn't her father. It can't think in terms of negative evidence. It can identify the relationships that exist in the document. It can't identify relationships that don't exist in that document. So it has limitations on deep analysis, but it can be used to analyze superficially and get the information out of a document. And it cannot create something totally new. I use AI all the time to make images for my presentations, as many speakers do nowadays. But it doesn't create a new image per se. It doesn't have that creative ability. When it creates an image, it's using everything it has seen in the past from all over the world, image-wise. And then I give it instructions what I want in my image, and it draws from all the pictures it's ever seen and tries to create the image I'm looking for. And then I'll tell it, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this, and it'll change it and try again. So it can create an image, but it doesn't create a new image per se. That's why there's so much question about the ethics of artistry when it comes to AI use, because AI isn't creating. It's drawing on the works of somebody else. So let's talk about the ones you can use for our everyday family history and genealogy work. There are several chatbots. Chatbots is what we refer to these websites as. Oh, and for those of you who want to get these pictures and slides, that's perfectly okay. I have posted the slides and this handout on my website, so you are welcome to access the slides there and get the ones you want. So that you don't have to worry about getting good quality pictures. So my website is on that handout, and you're free to go there. It's in the Learning Center of that handout. There's a section called Presentations, and there you'll see this presentation posted already there. The ones that are most commonly used, I think, for family history work are the first three. ChatGPT, which was the first. ChatGPT appeared in November of 2022. Hasn't been around a long time. Everybody's still afraid of it because it's so new. And that's okay. That's the normal reaction for most of us, is to fear the unknown. But the more you work with it, the less unknown it is. Perplexity is another one. That was the next one released. We do use that one periodically. I I have used Copilot. I don't find it a great one for family history work. Claude is becoming very popular with family historians and genealogists. And Gemini. Gemini got a bad rap at first, I guess, but the latest versions, they update these all the time. The latest version is wonderful. I use Gemini and I use ChatGPT the most, and I've played with Claude. Most historians love that one. So those are the three that I find most useful. They all have a free account version, yes. There are some limitations, and I'll talk about some of those as we go on here, but they do all have a free account. And then when you become, and don't pay right away, practice first. Practice with the free. And when you think you're ready for the extra features, then think about paying if you want to get the extra things that it does. Because the free will do everything we need. It will. There are some, and remember, they don't do the research for you. They're your assistant. All my little robots there are helping me, but they're not doing my research. There are some specialized AI tools out there that have been around longer and that you may have used before. Some are for image creating and editing. Some are for transcription, such as Transcribus, which was one of the first that showed up on the market for transcribing. I use ChatGPT and Gemini now for my transcriptions, and you're going to see a wonderful transcription using just those chatbots. There are some audio transcription ones. Those have been around a very long time. So you can get specialized ones if you have some specialized task, or if the general chatbots aren't working for you to do the task. Now, I said it's a conversation. And the way it works is you start off the conversation by giving it a prompt. And how well you write that prompt will have a lot to do with how frustrated you are at the end of the conversation or how successful. Please anticipate for the first few days or first few uses, it might be frustrating if you haven't used it before. But it gets easier and better with practice. And the real key to this is you have to practice. Most people who are experts at this will tell you, you need 20 to 40 hours of practice time. And when I say 20 to 40 hours, that means the time you spend conversing. It only takes that long for it to respond. So most of that time is your time.
Okay, so this is the first time I've ever heard of
Yep. And I'm going to show you how. I'm going to walk through some examples. So hang on. All right, once you've entered your first prompt, it's going to give you a response, and it's usually pretty quick about that response. It doesn't take it long. At that point, it's going to give you the option, another chat box for you to put another prompt in there. We call that the layered prompt because you're carrying on the conversation. Now, I've learned by experience, if that first conversation went off the rails, you can't fix it with your layered prompts. Don't try, because it hangs on to what it told you in the first place, and it tries to still build off that. It doesn't want to change it. So what I do when that happens is, if that first response was bad, I create a new conversation and start over with an initial prompt so that it doesn't try to use what it's already told me. And then you continue it, and then you continue adding. Now, the free accounts will oftentimes limit how many layered prompts you can put in. 3 is a pretty common number I've run across with some of them. So in other words, I can layer 2 or 3 or 4 times, and then it's going to say, can't do it anymore. It doesn't offer me any more prompts because I didn't pay for the deluxe version, the premium versions. So here, let's talk about how to write that prompt. There are various acronyms out there. The one you'll see most often if you just get online or ask chatbots, and you can ask chatbots, how do I write a good prompt? You can use it to educate you. In fact, you can use it to write your prompt. I can tell it I need a good prompt that tells to do this, and it'll tell me the prompt. So I have used it to create prompts. It's a wonderful tool once you get the hang of it. So there's 5 things I want you to remember and always include in your prompt, your first prompt, your initial prompt. And that is the role, the goal, the context, the task, and the flask. We're going to talk about each of these individually as we go along here. But basically the role is that you're telling it what role it's playing. Who is it? Give it an identity. Its identity in most cases for us is going to be you're a family historian or you're a genealogist. And I'm going to show you these as we go through the examples. You want to tell it to think like a genealogist. Or if you're doing something else, you want it to tell it to think like the professional. Think and tell it you have expertise in this. Really build it up, because then it's going to think that way. It's going to try to answer that way when it gives you your response. So that's the first thing. Tell it its role. Tell it a goal. What am I trying to accomplish? What do you, I'm talking to AI, so what do you want to accomplish? You want to accomplish this. And I always talk to it that way. You are a professional genealogist. You are trying to find the parents of so-and-so. And so I talk to it like it's a person. Context, or text sometimes it's just called. This is an important one. You've got to give it the details. You really have to pinpoint what you're trying to accomplish and what it's supposed to do and what it's going to use. So you can give it, if I'm creating an image, I give it several images of the kind of artistic work I want it to look like so that it understands what I'm trying to achieve. Or if I want it to transcribe a document, I upload the document. So you give it the document. Or if I want to compare documents, I upload 2 documents, or I upload 15 documents, whatever I'm trying to do. You can't break it. You can't overwork it. So upload what you want it to use as reference. The task, you're going to now tell it what to do. What do you want at the end of this? I want a research plan. I want a table that extracts all the names from that will. Tell it what you want, and the format is tell it how you want it. The table, text, bulleted statements. You tell it, that's what they call the flask, or I call the format. How do you want the response? I want an image. What you tell it how to make it look. So here it is. Here's Chatbox. When you go to chatbox.com, the websites are on your handout there. This is the screen, or most of the screen, the important part of the screen that pops up. Looks just like this. And in fact, because I have an account, I'm registered, a free account, I still register. And the advantage of registering is then it saves your prompt. It saves your conversations, and you can go back to a conversation and put another layered prompt into it. Continue the conversation 3 days later. So it'll save them if you've created your registration. So it says, hi, Joseph, what should we start? Where should we start? And first thing I always do, because I forget too many times if I don't, is I hit the plus sign and upload my documents. Whatever documents I'm going to give it to work with, or whatever guidelines. Sometimes I put my guidelines there. I upload those right then and there. After I've uploaded everything, now I begin the conversation. And so I type my prompt right here. Now, oftentimes nowadays, I type my prompt in a Word doc or a Google doc or some text file so that I can just cut and paste. The reason is I learned an important lesson, which I'll show you in just a minute, when I didn't do that. There is a tools box. You don't have to use it. If you're going to do any of these specialized things, you can kind of prepare it. I'm creating an image. I'm having you teach me how to do something. You can select one of these and it makes it think more in that line right away. But if you write a good prompt, which is what you're all going to do, then you don't need to tell it that. You've already told it that in your prompt. So let's do it. First example, we're going to transcribe and summarize this document. Now, you can't read it, and that's okay. I didn't mean for you to be able to read it. What I wanted to show you was this document, the only part of the document I needed were the red squared areas. But when I downloaded the images from Family Search, it had 2 pages. One page I didn't need, and the other page I did. Then the next image had part of the page I needed and part of the page I didn't. Do not give it both the full images the way you downloaded them if you don't want it all transcribed, because it's going to transcribe it all. I only wanted the section that's in red. So crop your images before you upload them so that you only give it the part you want. And if there's little things in the margins, like these couple words here, it's going to transcribe those too, potentially, and it's going to transcribe them right in the middle of whatever that beginning of that line was. So what I oftentimes do is crop those off too if I don't want them transcribed. Crop that part too, but I wanted to show you that those are there sometimes and you want to be careful of those. All right, so those get uploaded. Here they are at the top of my upload page. Then I wrote my prompt. This is on ChatGPT. So the role I assigned to it today: you are a professional genealogist who specializes in 19th century probate document transcription and analysis. Could I have made their job more specific? No, but I wanted AI to know what its role is, what you are doing. Then its goal: you have been asked to transcribe and summarize the will of Thomas Huff, who died about 1841. Talk to it like you'd talk to anybody about your genealogy. Then the context, using the attached document or images, you can say either one, it'll understand. Task: prepare a genealogist quality transcription of the document and then summarize the document, focusing on dates and identifying every person named in the record and family relationships specifically identified in the document. Do not speculate, and I'm going to come back to that phrase in a minute here, about relationships that are not defined. And then finally, the FLASK, the format. Provide the summary in a 4-column table, and then I give it the headings: name, relationship, key detail and evidence of relationship. If you hypothesize about a relationship, indicate the relationship as possible. Format as a markdown table. That part's not critical, but it just tells it the way to format the table. So those were its instructions, pretty explicit. Let's see what they did. This is a fascinating look at the estate. It always gives you a nice pep talk first. It always says, thank you for asking me. I'm happy to help you. So this is its pep talk, and it gives me a few important details. It points out the fact that there were spelling variations for the surname in the document, and it realizes that, and it tells me that. It tells me about the fact that it didn't quite use S and plurals properly, but that's 18th century for you. All right, then it goes through and it starts the transcription. Now, the first part of the document was actually the document being presented for probate to be proved by the court. And so that's what all of this first part is the proof, the documentation of the witnesses giving their affidavits that, yes, I witnessed this will and all that. It did a great job. I checked this and checked this. It did an exceptionally good job at transcribing that document from 1841. The first paragraph at the top here continues that transcription, and then it starts off, in the name of God, amen. Well, that's obviously the start of the will, because back in those days, that's the way they started wills. And then it goes through and transcribes the will, the rest of the will. And the rest of the will. And it tells me page 2, which is actually image 2. So that it keeps track of, tells me where it started the next page. And then it tells me that Thomas signed with his mark, just the way it should have told me that, just the way a professional transcription would look. And the witnesses. And then it gives me my table. And it didn't miss a detail. I asked it in the last column, and I often do this, is show me the evidence that you didn't make this up. I do. I always ask it that, because otherwise it makes it up. So show me the evidence, and that's why that last column is on there. And so it had to quote from within the document telling me where it found all these pieces of information. Makes my double checking it a lot easier if I just have to go look for that spot. Then it actually added some more analysis to it. It's trying to please. Keep that in mind. It's always trying to please. And if it can't tell you the truth, it'll tell you whatever it wants. So it points out the Callender connection is an interesting one, that William D. Callender was a witness and that there was an Abigail Callender as an heir, a daughter. Probably some relationship, possibly a husband, and it was her husband. It points out the estate distribution, interesting facts about the estate distribution, that the two of the sons got a whole bunch of the estate and the rest of the sons got $1. Now, it can't tell me why the dollar. Well, it does actually tell me why in this case. It can't always tell you that, but this one was on the ball and said $1 was oftentimes to let everyone know that all the heirs are listed, basically, and that they didn't overlook anybody. It was kind of a placeholder. I didn't forget you, so don't contest the will. You were in it. You got $1. Shut up. All right. So then it comes back and creates another prompt box. So I could have carried on, although it had done everything I asked. But in this case, I went ahead just for demonstration purposes and said, how long did it take you to prepare the response once you received the prompt? How long do you guess? So that's my layered prompt, 20 to 30 seconds. And it tells me what it was doing during those 20 to 30 seconds. I barely had time to put my pen down before it had the response on the computer. How long would it take me? I do these all the time. It would have taken me probably an hour to transcribe all of that, double check it, create the table. I just saved an hour of time in 30 seconds. So can it be helpful? Yes, it can be very helpful. All right, let's do another fun one. Image analysis. So that was summary, and it was transcription, and I built a whole bunch of things it likes to do into one prompt. I could have done them separately. I could have asked for the transcription first, and then in the layered prompt, asked for the analysis and table. You can do it either way. It's pretty bright. All right, image analysis. So in this case, I wrote the prompt in my Word doc because I wanted to have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s. And you can do that in a prompt, but it just looks weird as I'm typing it, because in a prompt, it's just one continuous. You cannot hit the enter key for the next line in a prompt. And I'll show you what happens when you do. So I wrote out this one, and then I simply cut and paste and put it into the prompt field. But that was the prompt. And this was I wanted to show you enlargement of this. This tombstone obviously has some cracks, some aging problems. And as I looked at this, even blown up big like this, I was a little concerned about the death dates, because there's a crack through there, that line. And of course, the birth date has a crack, but I wasn't quite as concerned about that one. So I gave it to AI, and I really didn't know what to do with this. At the very bottom of it, there was this inscription. And I just said, oh, I can make out the he at the beginning. I just kind of gave up. So I gave it to AI, and here's AI's response. The prompt you saw. Here's the transcription. It got everything the way I personally transcribed it. And down at the bottom, it even transcribed that little scribble that I couldn't make out. It put one word in brackets, because genealogists, and it's thinking like a genealogist, genealogists put things they're not sure about in brackets. And so it even put that word in brackets, and it told me why it put it in brackets. It talked about the physical characteristics. It taught me that there might be lichen or moss. There's all kinds of discolorations, and it told me what possible causes of everything that it sees on there. It talked about the legibility, the cracks. It told me the condition of that stone. It gave me the analysis, and it told me that word that was in bracketed, builder, is the epitaph. The word builder is heavily obscured by weathering. But it figured it out that must be builder, and it told me why, because this was a quote from Hebrews. And sure enough, I quick grabbed my dictionary and looked it up, and that was the quote. And it recognized that was a quote from Hebrews. I didn't tell it to go do that. It just did it. It knew. So it's learned the Bible. That's one of the things apparently it's learned. Then it gave me a confidence assessment. I didn't ask it to. Sometimes I do. In this case, I didn't ask, but it went ahead and did it anyway. Maybe it's gotten used to me. And by the way, it does learn from you. It does learn from you. And so all of these times you're writing prompts, it's learning. It's learning what you want and what you expect. So keep that in mind. I gave it the whole prompt. Yeah, I told you, you're a professional genealogist. Your goal is to extract the data from this tombstone. And I told the 5 things I wanted it to look at. I can go back to it here. Yeah. And then it talks about the symbols. I didn't ask it. It analyzed the stone to death. But it was all interesting and fascinating stuff. And it did a great job. It showed me that the dates and its conclusions were all accurate by looking at the age of the person that was inscribed and looking at the 2 dates to make sure those dates really were correct based upon the age. And it said at the bottom, the calculation is mathematically perfect. So everything corresponded. All right, well, so those are the things it does well. Now let's talk about a few of the things it doesn't do so well, or it does well if you are careful about the prompt you write. I have a lot of brick walls. Anybody else got a few brick walls in your ancestry? Well, I have a brick wall that I've been working on for 50 years, off and on, Joseph Doty. I can't find his parents, or at least strong evidence as to who his parents were. I have some hypotheses, and every now and then I'll find something. But he was born in 1812 in Ontario County, New York. Not a great time and place to be born for records keeping purposes. So it's been a struggle. So I decided to let AI take a stab at helping me. I didn't want it to do the research. I wanted it to build a research plan for me. And that it can do. It can generate, that's brainstorming. So I gave it its role. You're a professional genealogist, a genealogy researcher in this case. I gave it its goal. The goal is to identify the maiden surname of Joseph's first wife, Rachel, and the identity of the parents of Joseph. I gave it context. I gave it everything I thought I knew about Joseph. I told him about the military record, that's where I got the location of his birth. I told him about census records. I told everything I knew about Joseph, I tried to summarize in this and where I got it. It's important to tell it where you got it, because otherwise it's going to give you those records again and say, oh, go check this, go check this. So if you don't tell it I've already checked that, it's going to come back and tell you, check it. So it's kind of wastes a little bit of your time. Well, at that point, I was ready to write the task to tell it I wanted a research plan, and I hit the enter key instead of just continuing my typing. So this is all it's got now. It doesn't know what I want it to do, but it has a goal: identify the parents and the maiden name. So that's what it's going to try to do. I haven't been able to do it, but AI now is going to try to do it. So here's what happened. Oh, no, it is not. Add conversation. Let's try that again. Well, darn. So I'll just explain. It went through and identified just what my goal said. It said, oh, Joseph is undoubtedly the son of Isaac Doty. And the reasons are he's in the census records. He was the only son of Doty in Ontario County, New York, who had a son named Joseph. It quoted census records for me. It quoted tax records for me. It quoted all kinds of records. So I thought, well, I've never heard of this guy. So I'll go look again. And I checked those records, and they were all fictitious. It made it all up, including the evidence, and told me that it was confident that that's his parents, and gave me possible maiden names for Rachel, and told me Y and gave me records to search. And I searched and said, okay, I've learned my lesson. You got to include all 5 parts of the prompt. So what I did was I went back and I reworked it. And I learned the golden prompt rule. If AI gives you a bad result, look at your RGCTF components. Usually the context or the task was too thin. In this case, gone because I forgot to put in the task. Refine the prompt and begin a new chat because I thought, oh, I'll just tell it, oops, here's the task. And I did. I layered prompt, I put in the task, and I put in the format. It was too late. It was still trying to build on all that proof it had given me before. It couldn't say, oh, I made a mistake. It will say that if you tell it it's okay to say that. But if you don't give it permission, it's not going to tell you it made a mistake. So I did rerun it. I ran it on Gemini, and this time Gemini didn't tell me anything about this fictitious parents. It gave me a research plan. Go and check the military records, check the probate records in this county and in this location. Gave me a list of records to check and what locations to check them in. It even gave me repositories for some of the records. So I got my research plan, but I had to learn my lesson first. Here's the other one that some of us might find helpful, and that is to create a locality guide. We're all researchers, or hopefully researchers, and one of the things that happens all too often is, as we go further and further back, our ancestors came from a new locality that I've never done research in before. And the first thing we advise and teach you to do is create a locality guide for researching in that location. Now, a lot of times you can find those locality guides online, but I like to create my own, and AI makes it easier. It doesn't do quite as good a job as perhaps we would do ourselves, but it gives you a good starting point, a good foundation to work with. So let's look at a locality guide. When I create, what you put in is up to you, but my locality guide has these areas of information in it. That's pretty extensive, and that's a lot of work to find all of this information for a new location. So let AI do some of it for me. I'll fine tune. So I start with what it gives me. So I tell it, and I give it this document right here. What you see on the screen, I just upload that and say, this is the format. This is what I want you to find. Everything that's listed in here, I want you to find and give me that information. And I tell it what location. I almost always tell it that now. That's become, and then we're going to come back to that thought in just a minute here. So you get your prompt, you upload your document. There's my document with all, just like the way you just saw it, with all those categories of information I want. I write my prompt. You are an expert level professional genealogist. Your goal is to create a genealogical research locality guide for Ontario County, New York for the time period 1790 to 1850. You can narrow it to the research period that you're interested in so that I don't have to hear about other things, records all that are available after that. And then use the 2 attached images because I broke that into 2 images, attached images to identify the categories of information to be included in the guide. The guide is to be divided into 2 major sections, background and records collections. Provide the repository information for each record collection included, including the URL for the collection if it is online. It doesn't take long, and it does a great job. So it's got its role, it's got its goal, it's got its context, it's got its task, and it's got its format, Flask. Go to work. Well, since this isn't letting me connect today, it did a great job. It especially did a good job on the background information, all that historical stuff. Very good. Records collections, it did a lot of, census records, family search, ancestry, probate records, family search, ancestry, and it just gave me the generics. When I create my guide, I usually go into the catalog and find the specific documents and put those in there. So I have to still beef up the content area of the records. But it didn't make any mistakes, and it did give me some I wouldn't have necessarily thought about. It was good about quoting libraries or archives that have records, certain records and things like that for me, so that I didn't have to dig quite so hard. So it gives a good amount of detail, just not as great on the records themselves. Now, fortunately, there are some genealogists who have created locality guide chatbots, prompts, and have made these available for anybody to use. Theirs are much better than mine. Well, I didn't put enough detail in mine. If I'd given it more instruction, more context, then I'm sure it would have done better. They've worked through these. They've rewritten and rewritten and rewritten until they got something that really collects the amount of information. These links are in your handout, so don't panic on that. These links are in your handout. So if you're going to create a locality guide, you can go to ChatGPT. They're both on ChatGPT, free account. Just type in Diana Elder's locality guide, or go to that link, and then in your prompt space, just say, using this GPT, create a locality guide for location and time period. That's your prompt. And it's going to follow that GPT. Yep. Using this, because it's going to bring up a page that has her title at the top. And say, just tell it, using this GPT, it's called, create a locality guide for this location. That's your whole prompt in that case. You can save your prompts too. As you can see, I've saved those on mine. This is from my page. So I've saved them. Now I don't even have to type in the website anymore. I just go click on this. I saved it to my menu on a free account. And I just click that and say create. And I click both of them and say create the same thing. And then I put mine together from their results. Here's the important lesson. Remember we said hallucinates. You've got to tell it, don't hallucinate. Now there's various ways you do that. And you build this into your prompt. So one way is grounding it. Well, you've already started grounding it when you assigned its role. So you want to be sure you've assigned that role properly. Provide explicit instructions. Hopefully you've been doing that all along. Only, and these are some phrases you can use, only use the provided text to answer. Or do not speculate. That's why you saw that in one of my prompts. Do not speculate. Label speculative ideas clearly as hypotheses. So you can tell when it's trying to make something up. Provide an escape hatch. This is where you can tell it it's okay to not answer. So if the answer is not in the document, say you don't know, or I am uncertain, or I don't have that information. So you can give it permission to not know all the answers. Structure the AI reasoning. This is how you tell it to think. And so one's called chain of thought. Think step by step to reach a conclusion and formulate a response. These are all in your handout, by the way. So you can just copy and paste these into your prompt. Step back prompting. First, identify high-level principles or broader context before answering. Provide 2 or 3 examples. You provide to it 2 or 3 examples of what you want it to look like or what you want it to do. Upload those into that plus sign, add your images section. I do that when I'm doing my images, as I mentioned. I upload several images, say, I want something that's kind of in this format, but I don't want these images. I want my image to have this and this and this. So I gave it some examples in that case. Constrain output. Use templates or specific word counts. So I want this narrative in less than 500 words. Otherwise, it'll just ramble forever. It doesn't like a blank page. And then verification and iteration, chain of verification. Here's another phrases you can use. Formulate an answer, Then create verification questions to check your own work for accuracy before responding. I love that one. I use that one. Ask it to check itself. Rate your confidence on a scale. It did this one automatically for me, probably because it's tired of hearing me ask for it. But rate your confidence on a scale of 0 to 10 for each claim or idea. You want to specify reliable sources. I do this one all the time. I'm sure it knows that I want these by now. Only use reliable sources. And then I tell it to give me the source and tell me where I can find the source so that I can go verify if I want to. So, and then self-correction after the initial response. So when you get to the layered prompt section, follow up with this phrase: review your previous answer for any factual errors or inconsistencies. So you can kind of get it to help you recognize hallucinations. But the better you get at writing prompts, the fewer hallucinations you're going to encounter. It takes practice. You have to commit yourself to practice. Even if you just say, I'm going to sit down and play with this for an hour a week. In 20 weeks, you will feel very comfortable using it. Now, I've given you 5 examples to take home and practice. So please feel free to go and do that and practice as often as you need to until you can start getting away from what I've written in the script and start writing your own prompts. Any questions? Yes.